Talk of the Town on 99.7, 1450 WHTC, and WHTC.com.
And we welcome you back to Talk of the Town for this Thursday, July 2nd. I'm Gary Stevens. Open line returns Monday. But we have on our first Thursday of the month, we devote our 10:30 segment to what's going on at the old Hayworth seeding plant in Allegan. That, of course, is where the Allegan County Sheriff's Department headquarters and the Allegan County Jail is located. And Allegan County Sheriff Frank Baker is on the other end of our Zoom connection this morning. And Frank, good morning and welcome back to Talk of the Town.
Good morning. Glad to be here.
Glad you are with us. And if you wish to have a comment with Sheriff Baker, no, I'm not going to allow you on the Zoom. You can call us at 395-1450, 395-1450. Frank, first of all, I want to touch upon what we are talking about right now, which is the 4th of July weekend. It's going to be busy on area roads, and it's going to be busy on area waterways. And the Allegan County Sheriff's Department apparently is all set and ready to go.
Yeah, I think you just read the forecast for this weekend, and it's going to be warm, and we're going to have beautiful weather. So we know what that means for us. We know that we're going to be very busy, and of course, we're going to have deputies prepared and staffed to take care of any events that might occur, both on the land and on the water.
I assume, and I'm going to making a big assumption, but I assume you're part of the extra enforcement that is going on statewide involving state troopers, sheriff's deputies, and also local police officers. And I think the emphasis, I believe, this time around is on drunken driving this weekend, right?
Yeah, typically when we have a holiday like this, we do focus some of our extra enforcement efforts on the roadways, especially in regards to drinking and driving. This holiday, we anticipate with the heat like it is, it's going to be a bigger issue maybe than if the weather wasn't so nice. And obviously, our roadways are one of our key concerns. Fatal traffic crashes that are occurring as a result of drinking and driving is just something that's unacceptable. We do our part to make sure that we can make our roadways as safe as possible.
Now, not only are we dealing with roadways being safe, but Operation Dry Water is this weekend, and I believe Sgt Todd Wagner is with you today to talk a little bit about not only Operation Dry Water, but also dealing with marine safety as we're getting into, indeed, the boating and water use time of the season.
Exactly, and I'm going to have Sgt Wagner kind of address some of the specifics regarding that, but just on, for me personally, obviously I'm a boater myself, and I enjoy the waterways, and I understand we all want to have fun. We all want to have a good time, but we also want to make sure we do it safely, not only for ourselves, but our fellow motorists. And alcohol can be a big part of boating. And there are certain things are allowed, certain things aren't. And Sgt Wagner is our expert on it. He runs our Marine Patrol, does an amazing job, and we're very fortunate to have him. So I thought it'd be nice if he could be here with us to kind of chime in on this topic.
Go ahead while you swing over the camera to Sgt Todd Wagner. We appreciate him joining us today on WHTC's Talk of the Town. Todd, talk a little bit about Operation Dry Water that Allegan County is participating. It's a nationwide effort, but really nationwide effort and with a very much of a local flavor here.
Yeah, we've been participating in this for the last several years, and basically it's focused really on boating under the influence, along with boating safely. One of the biggest things, obviously, we're going to be looking for is folks that are under the influence operating recklessly that may pose imminent danger to other boaters or other people in the water. But we're also focused on other safety concerns, like making sure that folks are wearing their life jackets, especially young children. State of Michigan, any child under the age of 6 has to have a life jacket on at all times while on the boat.
Now, the enforcement effort, obviously, they say dry water. But as you mentioned, your deputies will be also looking for those who are maybe not fully equipped with their vessel, or perhaps in a different way there, Todd, those that aren't really on a vessel, like a jet ski or like that. They should, have the flotation device on as well.
Yeah, you're right. There's a lot of different contrivances and other things that people take to the water on, whether it's a personal watercraft, a canoe. What's really popular around Southwest Michigan here is kayaks. And there's a lot of people, they go out to a big box store, they spend a few $100s on a kayak, and they've never been in one before. And next thing you know, on their water and without a life jacket. Another big popular device is stand-up paddle boards, and folks don't realize that that is considered a vessel. And really, it's common sense. If you go out on the water, you probably should have a life jacket. You can't predict what's going to happen, and unfortunately, bad things do happen.
And then all of a sudden, people realize, I was a good swimmer, and I thought I would be able to handle things, and then surprise, surprise, surprise. Unfortunately, sometimes not a very pleasant one.
No, a lot of the people that we do encounter in tragic situations, whether it's something that is real bad, like an accident, or even a fatality, the first thing out of their mouth is, I never thought this would happen to me. Well, that typically is what happens when you're just not exercising, good safety practices.
We're talking with Allegan County Sheriff Sergeant Todd Wagner. He's head of the Allegan County Sheriff's Department's Marine Unit. And I want to touch upon not only enforcement as to what is being enforced, but where. First thing people would think of, enforcing Lake Michigan. And that, of course, is always a big problem. But we're dealing also, especially in Allegan County, with Kalamazoo Lake and Saugatuck and the Kalamazoo River. And I want to bring up another point that maybe I'm making this a stretch, Todd, but maybe not. The waters near the Allegan Dam. I would think that is nice to be around, but that could also pose some hazards as well.
Yeah, we're pretty much going to be focused just about everywhere that we can possibly be. We'll be working with the United States Coast Guard out covering Lake Michigan, along with Kalamazoo Lake and River and Saugatuck. We have boats working inland. The Allegan Dam is unique, individual. It's on one side, it's a nice big body of water, which is Lake Allegan, and there's a lot of people live on the lake, a lot of people take to that lake. And then you have the downside of the dam where there's a lot of water flow. Believe it or not, folks are really conscious of that rapidly moving water on the downstream side, and they respect it, very well. So, fortunately, and I don't want to jinx us by any means, but we've been very, very fortunate that we haven't had anything serious happen on that side of the dam. And
something, by me bringing it up, and I don't want, again, I'm not going to try to jinx, but because we haven't heard anything about the dam situation, DAM situation, folks, it's not, because we haven't heard that much about it, I have to bring up the point, is there a problem at Allegan Lake? And apparently, when there's no problems, it can be somewhat overlooked. But as you mentioned, Todd, it does seem like the residents that do use the lake, and it looks like just residents for the most part, they respect what the water can do.
Yeah, and that's a big part of it. As long as you respect what the water can do, and you work on learning the water itself, you'll have a much more enjoyable time. Between that and making sure that you have the proper safety equipment that's necessary, people should really be able to have a great, enjoyable weekend.
Yeah, I want to go one more thing about upstream on the Allegan, on the Kalamazoo River, and you mentioned kayaks. Kalamazoo River around the Otsego Plainwell area, another area that we don't talk about too much, but apparently everybody's been behaving and playing nice in that area too.
Well, we've had our share already again this year, as in years past, where we have a lot of problems with kayakers. And it's an area where a lot of novice adventurers take to the water. That area of the river is a lot narrower. The water's moving a lot faster. There's a lot more underwater obstructions, things in the water that can be very dangerous, which we call strainers, or dead trees in the water that you get pinned up against that. There's a good chance that you're never coming out. The biggest thing, if you've never been in a kayak or canoe, especially on rapid moving water, we really urge you to go to a larger open body of water that's calmer, that has no moving water, kind of get your, feet wet, so to speak, and be able to operate your canoe or kayak or whatever other vessel you're utilizing. and make sure you go with somebody that's experienced. You let somebody know where you're going, when you expect to return. We call it a float plan. Tell somebody, where you're going. Make sure you carry a cell phone, and just try to be cognizant of exactly where you're at. So if you do need to call for help, we can try to pinpoint you a lot faster versus somebody that calls 911 says, I'm stuck on the Kalamazoo River, but I don't know where. And we've got, several miles of that river that takes quite a while to search for.
It just meanders, from Otsego through the dam area in Allegan, and then up through New Richmond, and then meanders into Saugatuck as well. And, of course, the other problem right now is high water. We talked about it with Holland City Manager Keith Van Beek about no wake in Lake Mac. It's something that, of course, obviously, it's not a situation where the Allegan County Sheriff's Department has to decide, we're going to do this, there's a no-wake zone because of what the department is. All they're doing is enforcing the laws that the local municipalities have. But I would think, especially with Kalamazoo Lake, try to take it easy when you're trying to move around that area right now.
Yeah, there's, we have our number of complaints from that, too, just with the high water. One of the areas that people tend to focus on, especially with their personal watercraft or other smaller boats, is, Lake Kalamazoo over in Saugatuck Douglas area. And even though they're perfectly legal to be out there, the wakes do cause a little bit of damage. So try to use a little common sense. Stay away, far out in the middle, away from any docks or any other anchored vessels that may cause any damage or injury to anybody else.
And one final thing, and we touch upon it a little bit more in the Ottawa County side of our discussions about being in Lake Michigan especially. Watch for the flags, Holland State Park, Tunnel Park, and also Grand Haven State Park. But Allegan County, that could be just as much of a problem, even though it's not as bad as, say, Holland or a little bit further south, maybe with South Haven.
Yeah, when we get certain winds coming from, especially from the north, parallel along the lakeshore, we tend to develop rip currents, which can be extremely dangerous. And outside of the Oval Beach in Saugatuck, there's really no public beach area that has lifeguards or any type of warning system. So be real cognizant of the forecast, and the waves look really fun to go out, especially when they're big, but it can also be extremely dangerous. So again, just to kind of check the forecast. People can access it online, they can access it via the radio, and just kind of see, is there any rip current warnings out there? Is it too dangerous to be out there? And if you're going to have young kids, make sure your focus is on the young child. Don't be reading a book or talking on your phone or texting or, whatever the case may be. Your primary focus should be on the child in the water. And, we do support a safety program for that, through Safe Kids USA. And, it's been real successful.
Frank, I know that many municipalities who had official fireworks shows planned for this weekend have had to deep six them because of the COVID-19 situation, but that has not stopped the regular constituents from wanting to shoot off fireworks. There are times to do it, and there's ways to do it, and unfortunately, when they don't do it the right time or the right way, that's when the men and women in brown go to work, unfortunately, Frank.
Yeah, obviously, much like you mentioned, there's a lot of places that traditionally have always had a large fireworks display, and a lot of them have chosen to cancel them. There's some still going, a couple around the county, but most have canceled. And so we anticipate that what that's going to mean is you're going to see a lot of homeowners associations, individuals, people, groups getting together to kind of pool their fireworks and make their own displays. And they can sometimes have a tendency to be as big as what would be considered a professional fireworks display. We're well aware of some of them that happen around the county every year. But one of the things that we do want to recommend to people is that obviously they do so safely. But also because of the way the fireworks laws are, they've changed quite a bit over the last few years. And a lot of municipalities are now having their own ordinances that cover fireworks displays. So while Michigan law is pretty basic, you're going to be able to have them during this period of the holiday weekend, from about 11 a.m. to 11:45 p.m. But make sure you do check with your governmental entity that you're going to be doing that display in, just to make sure that you fall within their ordinances. We don't want to have someone's good time hampered by us showing up. While we may like to watch the display with you and have a good time, but we do have a job to do. So if there is something occurring that's outside the parameters that the law allows for, we don't want to be in a position where we have to shut down someone's display or take any kind of enforcement action.
How tough is it to try to pinpoint sometimes these, say somebody's shooting off firecrackers at the wrong time, and you hear it, it's like, oh, come on, please stop it. But then you can't really figure out if it's a block away or 2 blocks away and all that. And then they call Central Dispatch saying, you got people shooting off fireworks. Where is it? Well, I live here, but I'm hearing the fireworks there. It's kind of hard to pinpoint them at times.
Yeah. It's more like kind of we're chasing our tail often on these, especially the 4th of July weekend, because exactly what you say, you got so many multiple people doing it, and you got so many different locations, and it's hard sometimes to judge where it's coming from. And by the time we get there, maybe it's over, or we're ending up getting a call to go down the street and check another one. So we kind of run around chasing our tail, but we do the best we can with the resources we have. But it is definitely a challenge. And another thing I know I feel bad for is a lot of families have family pets that this is a pretty traumatic time for them. And while it's sometimes easier for them during the early evening hours to maybe have the TV on or the radio on or do something to kind of cover for that noise, once you get past that allowable time, and a lot of people start going to bed and it's quiet in the homes, and the impact that those fireworks have on their family pets can be pretty traumatic to them. So, respect your neighbors and allow them to enjoy the holiday and just kind of follow those guidelines that the law and ordinances allow for.
The other thing, too, and I'm glad it's not a situation along the lakeshore, and I'm saying not only in Holland but also in Allegan and Ottawa counties. We don't have to worry about as many people shooting guns. Yeah.
There, like you say, there's obviously certain communities that have their own traditions, and fortunately, that hasn't been one that we've had to be challenged by.
With that, we button up our conversation with Allegan County Sheriff Frank Baker and Sheriff Sergeant Todd Wagner from the Marine Unit. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us today on Talk of the Town. Let's hope for a safe and happy Independence Day weekend. And Sheriff Baker, if all goes well, let's do this again in about 4 or 5 weeks or so, shall we?
Sounds good, Gary, and thank you. And hopefully all you guys and your staff up there and our listeners have a great, safe holiday weekend.
Thank you very much, Allegan County Sheriff Frank Baker on WHTC's Talk of the Town program. Steve Kathan has CBS News coming up, followed by WHTC News with Peg McNichol. And then we'll wrap up our Talk of the Town program with Wellspring from Spectrum Health Zeeland Community Hospital. Sarah Dockerson will be in the studio, and we'll find out what's on the docket for them in about 10 minutes or so from now.